Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fallout 76 for another trip to the Purveyor. Last week we took a run at legendary crafting, but we don't want Mama Mumbles to get too lonely, so this week we'll spend 1,000 Scrip on 3-star weapons, talk about what makes them good, bad, or somewhere in between, and see if we can get lucky. Remember, if you like videos like this and you want to see more, do go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, or follow me on Twitter. There's always a lot more to come on the channel, and without further ado, let's test our luck. And our first roll of the day is a Medic's cryolator with 25% damage while aiming, and it breaks 50% slower. So this one has, the Medic's effect I would say is probably my third most desirable effect on a cryolator. I think the number one would be quad, number two would be vampires, and number three would be medics. So the whole idea behind a cryolator is to freeze big tanky enemies in place so your teammates or other people at the event can go ahead and take them out. It's not about doing a lot of damage on your own, so getting extra damage perks on a cryolator is kinda pointless. Having it break slower is definitely good, there's nothing wrong with that, and the medic's effect, while not the most desirable, at least it has some support role that it plays. Quad would be better, you get more shots between reloads. Vampires will keep you healed up very efficiently, while medics leaves a good bit to be desired. But overall, not the worst cryolator role we could get, not the best. Let's see what's next. And next up, ooh, that's interesting. We've got an Aristocrats fixer with VATS critical shots doing more damage and 90% reduced weight. So let's start at the bottom here. The 90% reduced weight, I like that effect. It's not as great on something like a fixer or really any gun, simply because once you mod it, you're going to lose a lot of that, but it does reduce the weight of it, and that's good. VATS critical shots doing more damage is solid on a commando weapon, and Aristocrats is one of the new effects that basically you get up to 50% more damage depending on how many caps you're holding. So if you have more than 29,000 caps, you'll max that out. For a lot of higher level players who want to run a full health build, Aristocrats will definitely replace something like Junkies. It'll compete with something like anti-armor, though I don't truly think it'll be quite as good. But this is definitely one of the better effects if you want to run a full health build. So this is definitely a good roll. It's always good to see interesting effects on a fixer. Very, very happy with this one. Let's go ahead and see what else we can pull today. And next up is some garbage. Okay, we've got an Exterminator single action revolver with 50% limb damage and faster movement speed while aiming. The Exterminator's effect has gotten a buff like all the other Slayer effects, but sadly, it's still the Exterminator's effect. So unless you really want to have a special weapon just for hunting mirelurks and bugs, you're not going to keep this around. Limb damage, it's not the worst thing in the world to get, but it's not that useful. Faster movement speed while aiming will only benefit lower level players who don't have the speed demon mutation, or I suppose higher level players who don't have the speed demon mutation. But most high level players do. So yeah, sadly, this one's kind of a dud. I'm also just not a fan of the single action revolver. The reload is way too slow. Damage on pistols, especially revolvers, is way too low. So until some of those things see some changes or buffs, they're definitely going to continue to be pretty undesirable. Let's move along. And next up, we've got a pretty disappointing weapon. We've got a Ghoul Slayer's radium rifle that replenishes action points with each kill, and for the life of me, I cannot remember the name of that new effect, and extra perception. So why is this one making me laugh? Because a Ghoul Slayer's radium rifle is pretty stupid. Ghouls are absolutely immune to radiation. Some may even be healed from it. It's not like it was in Fallout 4 where it heals all ghouls, but I do believe that there are still some, especially if they're glowing, that will heal from radiation. So that's not a very good effect. Replenishing action points with each kill is a very cool effect. I can't wait until I get a weapon that has that on it that is actually test-worthy. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I want to see how that works. Extra perception will give us better VATS accuracy. Unfortunately, it's a Ghoul Slayer's radium rifle, so let's move on. And now we've got a Zealots 50 cal, again, replenishing action points with each kill. What is that called? It's inertial, that's what it's called. And hits have a chance to generate a stealth field is the Ghosts effect. So we've got two of the new effects on here. Unfortunately, they're not going to be super useful on this weapon. The Zealots effect isn't terrible as far as the situational damage effects go. With the damage buff, it's not too bad. You could definitely take this to a Scorch Beast Queen fight and get a little bit of mileage out of it, but that's kind of the extent of what you're going to do with this. Replenishing action points with each kill doesn't hurt, but I don't really see it being enough to maybe make it useful in VATS. I could be wrong about that. Might be interesting to test it out, but the Zealots effect just isn't that good. And the Ghost effect having a chance to generate a stealth field, does that really matter on a heavy gun where you're so loud and you're likely in power armor anyway? Is that really going to do anything for you? I really don't think it is. So sadly, we've got some interesting effects here, but not really a good combination with the weapon itself. So we're going to move along and see what else we can do. And next up, this one's a little better. This one, we've got an anti-armor railway rifle with bashing damage and a VATS critical meter that fills 15% faster. So anti-armor is always a pretty good effect. I do advocate that it is more useful on weapons with lower base damage because they need to work harder to penetrate armor. But even on a weapon like this, it's still pretty good because you're not going to get stealth bonuses out of this. So you can still get quite a bit of mileage out of the anti-armor effect. Bashing damage being increased by 50%. Who cares? Just who cares? On our stream a couple of nights ago, we tested out bashing damage on the new PTS, where we were able to increase the damage we do by 900%. And it was still pretty bad. So, you know, if 900% doesn't do the trick, 50% definitely isn't going to do the trick. So, yeah, bashing damage still sucks unless it's a minigun with a shredding barrel. That's critical meter filling 15% faster, definitely not a bad thing there. In all likelihood, you will use a railway rifle in VATS, so getting some more mileage out of that is not bad at all. This one is not a bad roll. This is a pretty solid one. I could do without the bashing damage, but other than that, it's pretty good. Let's see if we've got anything else good coming our way. And we have a Troubleshooters explosive lever action rifle with 15% faster reload. So this is a pretty solid roll. I don't love the Troubleshooters effect on a weapon like this, simply because I don't love situational damage effects as a whole. But if you have to have one of those, Troubleshooters is the one to get. Troubleshooters is going to be something that you can fairly commonly use, whether you're going through a nuke silo, or you're doing encrypted, or you're doing AWOL armaments, or any number of other things around the map that have robots, daily ops, etc. It's one that you can predict. It's one that you can definitely get a little bit of usage out of. So that's not a bad thing. Exploding bullets gives you just a flat out damage bonus all around, and 15% faster reload definitely doesn't hurt on a weapon like this, where while the reload isn't particularly slow, it's also not particularly fast. So as far as legendary lever action rifles go, this isn't a bad one to get. I'd certainly prefer something like Aristocrats or Anti-Armor or Junkies or Bloodied to Troubleshooters, but if you have to land on a situational damage effect, Troubleshooters is one of the better ones to land on, so that's not bad. And we've got a few left. Let's see what we've got here. We've got a Juggernauts broadsider with limb damage and agility. So this one is not very good. Number one, the Juggernauts effect. You get more damage as your health increases. That sounds pretty great if you want to play a full health build, right? Well, on paper it is. Unfortunately, your maximum damage increase is only 25%. So it's not that good. Something like Aristocrats is going to be way better and isn't going to require that you stay at basically perfect health. So unfortunately, the Juggernauts effect probably not going to be super popular. That should really get a boost. Limb damage on a weapon like this isn't bad, in my opinion. This is something that you're going to go after packs of enemies with, so if you can hit the ground and take out some limbs and slow them down or disarm them, that's not a bad thing here. Extra agility If you're using it in VATS, maybe that helps, but this is definitely more of an area of effect weapon, so I don't know how much VATS usage you're really going to do here. And ultimately, the big problem is it's still a broadsider, and the broadsider still sucks. So yeah, it's better than it used to be, I guess, a tiny bit, but it just doesn't output enough damage. It's still not durable enough to make it fun. So unfortunately, this one is going to be on the fast track back to the Scrip bin. Okay, we've got time for 2 more. We're going to do a Ghoul Slayer's light machine gun with limb damage and faster reload. So I don't love the Ghoul Slayer's effect here, but I guess it's okay. Limb damage, still don't love it, but I guess it's okay. Faster reload, that doesn't hurt on a weapon like this. This weapon fires very fast, and it only holds 75 rounds in its magazine, so speeding up the reload process is not a bad thing. The Ghoul Slayer's legendary effect, while I guess it's better than something like Exterminators, it's still not one you're really going to get a ton of usage out of. Limb damage, same kind of thing. If you want to do kind of a spray and pray approach to big swarms of enemies, then I guess you could get a little something out of it, but 308 ammo is so expensive to craft that using this as a spray and pray is probably not the way to go. But heck, to each their own. I could see this maybe being useful for a mid-level player who's working on perfecting a heavy gunner build. Something like this could be useful for farming XP at White Spring and a handful of other locations and events. Maybe not something you're going to keep using until the very end of the game, but something you could do maybe between, say, levels 40 and 70 to work your way up a little bit because it's better than nothing, but definitely not a real endgame kind of weapon. Let's see what our last roll is. And we're going to wrap up the day with, okay, this is a little bit interesting. We've got a quad pump action shotgun with limb damage and perception. So the quad effect on a pump action shotgun is kind of fun. It gives you a ton of rounds in your magazine. It also takes about 17 years to reload all of them. So yeah, bear that in mind. It does take a while. With that said, it's also kind of nice that you don't have to stop and reload as often because even when it's not quad, the reload on a pump action shotgun is pretty slow. So this is pretty good because the pump action gives you halfway decent damage to begin with, but this gives you much better ammo capacity. Limb damage on a weapon like this isn't a bad thing. Chances are if you're a shotgun build, you're probably running Enforcer, which is going to be more effective than this, but if you are kind of midway into your build, maybe you don't have that yet, so maybe you could get a little something out of this. Or maybe this is more of a sidearm kind of weapon where you're not a shotgun build, so you don't have Enforcer, so the limb damage is a lot more useful. Extra perception is going to make you more accurate in VATS, so that's a good combination as well if you want to target those limbs. And that's probably where I see this weapon being useful, is not so much for a shotgun build, but for somebody that isn't a shotgun build. You can get some of the benefits of a shotgun build with something like this without investing the perk cards in it. So this is, for an endgame player again, probably not their ideal choice, but for a sidearm or for a mid-level player, maybe you get a little bit of mileage out of something like that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to do it for this visit to the Purveyor. It was nice to come back and see Mama Mumbles again. She gave us a couple of interesting things here. And so not our best visit, not our most exciting visit, but certainly far from the worst. I do hope you enjoyed yourselves. If you did, please be sure to go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, follow me on Twitter. You all know what to do at this point. I hope I see you all next time, and until then, I'm Fisty McRib.